Hello, friends, and welcome back to another edition of Real Talks. My name is David Steele, where every movie that I talk about, whether it's new or old, is going to ignite a conversation. So come join me on this conversation as we talk about one of the better movies back 25 years ago. So today, I thought what I would do is go back in the time machine and talk about a movie that really was something else back then. It was really ahead of its time. So, as as we all know, Oliver Stone is just he's a visionary guy, okay, in what he does. And Any Given Sunday was one of those films back in the day that just it was really inspirational and it really told the gritty side of things. And so the film I'm obviously going to be doing today is Any Given Sunday. And you have to remember a couple things. First and foremost, okay, he had just come off doing um, what was the film? Oh, Natural Born Killers. He just came off doing Natural Born Killers a couple years prior to that. Okay, so that was in actually '94, but so he had done because he had made a long stretch of films going all the way back to '87 to this in '99 for 12 years. I mean, the man didn't stop making movies. I'm talking about Wall Street, Platoon, JFK, Natural Born Killers. This was 1999, Any Given Sunday, and it was remarkable. So, what I'm going to do today is obviously, once again, I have a lot of notes for you guys, but what I'm going to do is the first couple of things are going to be a little boring, but necessary things. I'm going to talk about the intro, okay, going the way back machine back 25 years ago, tell you what was playing, how much it made, all that good stuff. Then we're going to get into a little bit more. We're going to talk about casting, the development of the film, how did that come about, things like that. And then I'm going to give you the synopsis. And then at the end, there's 7 big themes that I want to touch upon one way or the other. And I want to get into all that. So let's just jump right in. Okay. And so once again, this was done in 1999. I can't believe I'm saying that. 1999, guys. That's crazy. So this actually had a December release, which is kind of interesting when you think about it, right? An Oliver Stone film being released in 1999. So the films that came out that year actually was Galaxy Quest and The Talented Mr. Ripley were both Christmas releases. So that was something that was very interesting to see in itself. So as displayed, okay, this stars Al Pacino, okay, Cameron Diaz, Aaron Eckhart, and Margaret. Now there's a couple of other people there that are pictured. Okay, first and foremost is James Woods. Okay, then you have the incomparable Jamie Foxx. Okay, and there were lots of cameos in this movie. Lots of cameos. So speaking of the cast, here is a list, a breakdown of everybody that was in the film. Okay, so you had Al Pacino, Dennis Quaid, Cameron Diaz, which, by the way, guys, she had just come off doing The Mask that year. Okay, 1999. So keep that in mind. Once again, James Woods, Jamie Foxx, who goes on to win an Academy Award many years later, LL Cool J, that's right, the singer, rapper, entrepreneur, Matthew Modine. Matthew Modine's an interesting character because he is one of those people that is, well, let's face it, everybody knows he's an interesting actor because everybody knows his name. But, that's like he was just in Oppenheimer. And if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't know it was him. So Matthew Modine was in this. He played one of the doctors. Jim Brown. So there are a lot of cameos I'm going to touch upon that were actually in this film that really gave it authenticity, I thought. And that was something that was important. Lawrence Taylor, LT, baby. Can't go without having a movie without LT. Bill Bellamy. And then, we had Anne Margaret, the incomparable Anne Margaret, and Aaron Eckhart, of course, Eckhart has done films like Thank You for Smoking, The Dark Knight, several other films, and really, you know, adds a different flavor to this. He plays one of the assistant head coaches, and Elizabeth Berkley. So she came out with just a little movie that year too, called Sugars. So this was her big claim to fame, and it was very interesting. So as the movie begins, okay, so you can start out in a couple of different ways when you're doing films. Okay, the first way is you just start the picture. Okay, and the second way is that you just you use a quote. In this case, there was a quote. Okay, I firmly believe that any man's finest hour, his greatest fulfillment, is that he holds dear the moment when he has worked his heart out in a good cause, and he's exhausted on the field in a battle victorious. And that was from Miss Lombardi. And so, right, because that's what the mainstay of this film is all about, is football. And it just, so we dive right into it, okay? And it starts with a silent close-up, okay, which is, once again, I'm going to get out later on this today, but we get the anticipation, we get the tension with this, and then you hear the snap, and then you hear, and how they filmed this was amazing, because all these camera guys and everything else, they got right up in everybody's faces, and it was just amazing how they did this. And of course, Oliver Stone makes a cameo. He has to be in every one of his films, right? Like Scorsese was, or his mom was at least. And so he plays one of the commentators. So let me read you the synopsis real quick. And then, so let me touch upon the cameos real quick, and then we'll get into the synopsis of the film. So some of the cameos that really gave this authenticity, okay, were Dick Butkus, Y.A. Tittle, Warren Moon, Johnny Unitas, Ricky Waters, all former players, guys, Emmett Smith, and T.O. Yes, T.O. was in the film. He makes a brief appearance, and you can see the back of the jersey says Owens, and that was his number. So, I mean, he didn't have a speaking part, but yeah. So this was actually written by John Logan, okay, who did The Aviator several years later, okay, 2004. And he also did Skyfall, guys, which I'm going to be doing later on for the Perfect Movies here on the channel, probably April or May. But Skyfall was, amazing. So, of course, Oliver Stone, went and wrote this, and he, of course, went on to direct this film. So the budget of this film was not big. It was not big at all. It was only $55 million. And in today's standards, that's like nothing, right? So it went on to gross over $100 million, okay, with only a $13.5 million opening. So that tells you something, okay? Oliver Stone is a hard-hitting guy, and he makes hard-hitting, subject matter, whether it is Wall Street or JFK or whether it is Platoon. He makes hard-hitting films, and this was, just the same. So it was in theaters for a little over. This tells you something, guys. When we talk about the theatrical window, okay. So for anybody who's not familiar with the theatrical window, okay, it is how long a film is going to stay in the theater for. So many, 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 many years ago, a film could stay in there for upwards of a year, and this one did. Okay, this was it was in there for a little over a year, 376 days to be exact, and was released in a little over 2,500 theaters. Now think about this, guys. In today's society, post-COVID, so pre-COVID, okay, they knocked it down. It was 90 days, 3 months. So if you never got a chance to went out and see this film, you could, wait a couple months and then go see it. And the minute COVID happened, okay, it shut all the theaters down. And as a matter of fact, Tenet's actually being re-released fairly shortly, in a couple weeks. But that was one of the first films. And then at that point, all these theaters, okay, it really started with Trolls. And then they cut the window to 45 days. So they cut it literally in half. And it was only in theater 6 weeks. Now, if it's a bomb, they'll have it on, VOD, video on demand, in a month. Because that's what, you know, that's what they do. They're trying to make money. So to think this was only in theaters for a year is crazy. Is absolutely crazy. So it was in 2,500 theaters, guys. Today, when we get a large, they call it a wide release, you're talking about 4,000 theaters. Now, this was 25 years ago. So really interesting to look at that dynamic in that respect. So that's the intro. Those are the numbers. So now what I'm going to do, let's move, okay, from that. Now I'm going to start talking about the behind the scenes stuff, because this is the stuff that really makes the movie happen, right? So let's talk about the development of the film. Okay, the development of the film. Oliver Stone developed a script called Monday Night, written by Jamie Williams, a former tight end for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and later he went on to get drafted by the San Francisco 49ers, and Richard Weiner, a sports journalist. Stone separately acquired this spec script on Any Given Sunday by John Logan. Stone later entitled a third script, Playing Hurt, by Daniel Payne, into the project. So he incorporated that into it. On May 1st of 1999, now you got to remember this was released in December, okay? The screenplay's cover page listed the following writers: original draft by Jamie Williams and Richard Weiner, John Logan, Daniel Payne, subsequent revisions by Gary Ross, revisions by Bruce Evans, Raymond Gideon, and John Logan. And then later revisions were done by Stone. The WGA, or the Writers Guild of America, ultimately awarded screenplay credit to Logan and Stone, with, quote, story credit going to Payne and Logan. Williams and Weiner went on to uncredited for the original screenplay, but were credited for the film as technical consultants, which is all important because you want everybody to try and get at all the credit they can for all of these films, okay? The screenplay was based on part of the 1994 book, You're Okay, It's Just a Bruise, a doctor's sideline secrets by a doctor. The intern doctor was for the Los Angeles Raiders back in the 1980s heyday, working under another major doctor. So he was kind of like a internist, if you will, who dismissed many player injuries with the phrase, "You're okay, it's just a bruise." James Woods' character was based off of one of the doctors, and the first diagnosis of Cap Rooney, who we see played by Dennis Quaid, who gets really knocked around. I'll get to the synopsis in a minute. The career-threatening injury at the beginning of the film is, "You're okay, it's just a bruise." And that doctor left in the early 90s, disgusted by the medical advice that was kept being given to the players. And Rosenfeld allowed this to continue after several mishaps. One of them is closely mirrored in the game, which is Shark's neck injury, risk of sudden death in the real-life case of Mike Harden. So he actually took real-life stuff and he incorporated this into the script, which I thought is fantastic. Better football movie, The Program, on Any Given Sunday or Draft Day. In my opinion, The Program is hugely underrated. Draft Day is very good. And I'm going to be doing Draft Day later on in the year. It is a very good movie. And what's so good about Draft Day is it's condensed. It all happens within 12 hours. It's a very good movie. Which one do I think is better? That's tough because it's one of those things where Any Given Sunday it's a hard-hitting drama. We see the behind-the-scenes stuff of what goes on in the football team. Okay? Every single NFL fan, okay, they only see what happens on Sundays. Okay? They hear about the injuries and everything else, but they're filling out their fantasy brackets and everything else. This is you gotta understand, these are real-life players. Draft Day is a whole different animal. because it's about one night and because we don't even see like the tryouts. I mean, we see the how the players played, but we don't even see like the combines or anything else. I think it's a different story. Um, and of course, you have the star power in you know Ellen Burstyn, Kevin Costner, and Jennifer Garner. Um, all three movies have all-star casts, definitely. They definitely do. So now that we've talked about the development, okay, let's talk about the casting, because obviously the casting is something that really, this cast is stacked. I mean, I'm going to bring it up again for you guys. This cast is stacked. And it's one of those things where it's pretty amazing to figure out how they got everybody. Okay. So, director Oliver Stone, his first two choices to play Tony D'Amato were Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. Shocker. Um, I can't see De Niro, looking back at this now, I can't see De Niro playing this character. He might have. It would have been interesting, though. Henry Rollins was offered a side role as a football player, but turned it down as he felt like he didn't have the size to make the portrayal believable. Speaking of draft day, Sean P. Diddy Combs was cast as Willie Beeman, but dropped out amongst rumors he could not throw a football convincingly. Can you imagine? Could you imagine for a minute if we had P. Diddy playing Willie Beeman? I can't see that going off well. I just can't. That would have been not a disaster, but it's one of those things where, we look back and go, oh my God, they were going to put that person in there. Like on Harrison Ford, for example. You would have never, there's nobody else in the world that could play Indiana Jones but Harrison Ford. Okay. Yeah. So totally different movie. And you're right about that. Totally different movie. Totally different movie. I would have liked to see that movie though with De Niro and P. Diddy though. Okay, publicity says that Combs dropped off the project because of scheduling conflicts with his recording career, which, Will Smith turned down the role, saying he wasn't interested. According to Cuba Gooding Jr., he met with Stone about playing the role of Beeman, but Stone turned Gooding down because he had already played a football player, Jerry Maguire, back in 1996. But that's a different football player. Could you have seen? Let me ask you guys this: Could you have seen? Could you have seen Cuba Gooding Jr. as Willie Beeman? I don't know. I mean, central player, like right in the middle of everything. I don't know. That would be interesting, but I could see where he was coming from. By the way, it looked like that he wanted to do it. So Chris Tucker turned down the role of Willie Beeman. George Clooney was offered the role of Jack Rooney. This is interesting, but turned it down as he thought Stone was going to rewrite the script for him. Vin Rames was originally going to be cast in the film, but later dropped out due to production delays and scheduling conflict with Mission Impossible 2. Yeah, I think he was fine because he went on to be in Vin Rames. Just people forget about this about Vin Rames. Vin Rames, like Zoe Saldana, for example, she's been in two huge franchises like Avatar and then Guardians of the Galaxy. Vin Rames, he was not only in Mission Impossible, dude, you got to remember, just a couple years earlier, he was in. So he does Mission Impossible in '96. This is in '99, but don't forget, like he was in Pulp Fiction a couple years prior to that too. So he was huge at that time. Not a lead guy, but definitely still somebody that was a big name back in the day. Jamie Foxx is perfect, the written comedy he is, and I think he goes to the script. I think it absolutely goes to the script. So, 5 football Hall of Famers players made cameos. Okay, Bob Sinclair. We touched upon Y.A. Tittle, Butkus, Warren Moon, and Johnny Unitas. Jim Caviezel, that same guy who played in Passion of the Christ, played Tony Amato's estranged son, but it seemed to a cut. They can be seen in the extras in the Oliver Stone collection. So that's casting there is fascinating. I'm still happy with the cast we got because it's one of those. I would not change this cast at all. At all. See, I could see Vin Rames maybe being a LL Cool J, his character, but I couldn't see him doing anything else. Or Lawrence Taylor's character because he's a big beefy guy, right? So yeah, I could see that, but I'm very happy with the cast that we got. So last thing I'm going to talk about real quick before we get into the reception and everything else is the principal photography. So the film was primarily shot in Miami, Florida, in Irving, Texas. And when the team traveled to California, the stadium was Pro Player Stadium, which is located in Miami Gardens. Texas Stadium, former home of the Cowboys, is used for all the fictional Dallas Knights. So it's not the new stadium that they just put up. Okay, that's like 10 years old. Oliver Stone failed to get the National Football League's permission to use the real NFL teams, so he had to actually make a whole league. Now this could take some real time, considering. So you had to make all of these teams. Like this shot here, they had to actually. It says Dallas, but they actually had to paint the locker rooms too. And of course, because Dallas Stadium wasn't being used, they could do whatever they wanted with it. So they went ahead and did that. So that is really interesting. So he went ahead and he created what was known as the AFFA. Okay, and so this is the Sharks played at the Orange Bowl. Okay, which was the abandoned stadium after the Miami Dolphins after the 1986 season. So, for the scenes during the football game, production asked local schools to participate as extras, which I think is pretty cool, including Lake Stevens Middle School in Miami. For each shot, the crowd was asked to move around so the sections looked full. In empty seats, cardboard cutouts were placed in the seats with balloons attached to them so they seemed like they were in motion. These are little tricks, too, that you can pick up if you want to actually make a small room large or have a lot of people. Practice scenes were filmed in the ill-fated Homestead Sports Complex, which was built for spring training baseball. However, the stadium was damaged by a hurricane in '92 and eventually torn down. The film used Arena League football players such as Pat O'Hara, who played for the Tampa Bay Storm and who went on to later coach the Orlando Predators, and now who's an assistant coach with Tennessee Titans, as well as Connell Merritt, who went to play for the Predators, and he's with the Soul, and then a couple of other things. So the biggest thing is authenticity. They went out of their way to actually make these things happen, okay, and to bring in real people. So it wasn't like the Replacements, let's say, okay, different movie, but you get the idea, okay. So one of the last things I'm going to talk about real quick is the reception of the film and how the reception of the film, what critics thought of it, right? Because don't forget, he had just, a few years prior to that, he had just come off doing Natural Born Killers. It was a pretty good success. So, we'll see how this was received by the critics. And you have to understand, there weren't as many critics back then as there are today. Time Out, New York, Andrew Johnson wrote, quote, "It's often been said of films about sports that smaller balls equal better movies. Any Given Sunday explodes that theory, and not just because of the incredible intensity of the gridiron action. Oliver Stone's best movie in many years, and it's one of his finest ever." And by the way, I agree with that assessment. I mean, Oliver Stone could be one of the greatest directors we've had in the last 25, 30 years. I mean, going all the way back to Wall Street, right? I mean, once again, Wall Street, Platoon, Any Given Sunday, JFK. I mean, just hard hitting after hard hitting after hard hitting. So I agree with that. Looks at the world of professional football at almost every conceivable angle, but never does it try to be the definitive statement on the subject. A surprisingly balanced film that submerges Stone's hyperkinetic style with a character-eccentric narrative reminiscent of the John Sayers and Robert Altman at their best. Sunday proves as the human drama and the MTV visual pyrotechnic actually can coexist after all. Roger Ebert, who's widely considered one of the best critics of all time, of the Chicago Sun-Times, also gave it a positive review, awarding it 3 out of 4 stars, but criticized its length. I recommend the film because of its dramatic scenes are worth it. Pacino has some nice heart-to-hearts with Quaid and Fox, and the psychology of the veteran coach is well captured in the screenplay by Stone and Logan. But if some studio executive came along and made Stone cut his film down to 2 hours, I have the strangest feelings it would lose much of its substance. It might not even play better. And he's right. It's a longer film, okay? But it needs it. You need to flesh out. I want to say it's 2 hours and 42 minutes. So take out about 10 minutes for credits. It's a 2.5 hour film, but it needs to be. There are so many characters in this movie that we go from one to the other, to the other, to the other. You can't just have a 2 hour film and not have all these storylines, because there are every single week. I mean, we have the Super Bowl coming up in a couple weeks. There are so many storylines. There are 2 teams, but there are so many storylines. I mean, Mahomes going after his 3rd ring. You have the whole Taylor Swift thing. You have San Francisco coming back from last week. You have all these different elements. I don't think a cardboard 2x2, 2 hour, thing would have really worked. On any given Sunday, you're going to win or lose. The point is, can you win and lose like a man? Absolutely. One of the best quotes there is. One of the best quotes. And the speech is just, it's one of the best. When we talk about speeches, when we talk about like speeches as far as, I don't know, sports speeches, like you have Rocky, you have Any Given Sunday, you have Miracle. That's right up there. That's right up there. Conversely, Richard's Echo of Time criticized the story as being, quote, standard, and stated, quote, almost 3 hours of this jitter, deteriorating of filmmaking to annoying mannerisms, and Any Given Sunday ends up less than the sum of its many often interesting parts. The Globe wrote that the story is chock-a-block, quote, chock-a-block with a manly and sacrifice and honor and rugged individuals pulling together for the greater glory of the team, and elaborated that many critics shared the same observation, that the movie was, quote, hyperkinetic, end quote. Jack Matthews of the New York Daily News stated that that the sensation we get from the blizzard of images and teeth-jarring sound effects is having our heads used as footballs. So the film itself, okay, received a 52% on 127 reviews from Rotten Tomatoes, which isn't bad, and it received an average of 5.5. So the site Rotten Tomatoes states sometimes entertaining, but overall, Any Given Sunday is disappointing coming from Oliver Stone. On Metacritic, Any Given Sunday has an aggregate score of 52% from 33 critics, and so there was a director's cut that was released, okay, and it was released on DVD and VHS. So it basically listed 6 minutes of previously unseen footage. It has a running time of 156 minutes, and 6 minutes of footage. 12 minutes were deleted for the director's cut, and 6 minutes were added. So that is all of the particulars. Okay, that is all the particulars for the film. It's still a fantastic movie, regardless. So here is the quick synopsis about it. When a devastating hit knocks out professional football player and quarterback captain Cap Rooney out of the game, a young, unknown third stringer is called in to replace him. Having ridden the bench for years because of a string of bad luck stories, Willie Beeman comes in. Having Willie Beeman seizes what might be his last chance and lights up the field with a raw display of athletic prowess. His stunning performance over several games is so outstanding and fresh that it seems to augment a new era in the history of the Miami franchise. So this is the Miami Sharks. Okay, that is the team in question. Enforces aging coach Tony D'Amato, once again played by Al Pacino, to evaluate his time-tested values and strategy to begin to confront the game as well as the post-modern life that may be passing by. Adding to the pressure for D'Amato to win at any cost is the aggressive young president and co-CEO, Christina Patriani, played by Cameron Diaz. Now coming into her own after her father's death, Christina's driving desire to prove herself in the male-dominated world intensified her focus on the marketing and business of football, in which all coaches and players are merely properties. So that is the synopsis in the grand scheme of things. And so, it was one of those things where there were a lot of themes to this. So I'm going to now touch upon a couple of the themes. Okay. The themes are the most important thing of the film because that really tells you what the story is about. The story has similarities with the Patriots. Drew Bledsoe getting hurt and young Tom Brady taking over. Yeah, that's actually a really good correlation, Deadpool. I had never thought about that. That's a really good wow. That's a really good correlation. So anybody who's not familiar with what Deadpool is talking about, okay, back in 1996, no, I'm sorry, back in 2001, Drew Bledsoe he got drafted in 1996. Patriots ultimately went to the Super Bowl, lost to the Packers that year. But Drew Bledsoe had been the quarterback for 5 years. He'd won a bunch of games for him and everything else. And what ended up happening was they were playing the New York Jets. And the New York Jets were not bad at that time. They were a formidable team. And what ended up happening was Mo Lewis. I remember watching this game like it was yesterday. Mo Lewis. Bledsoe was a truck, okay? And the play broke down. And he came in and he was trying to go on the sidelines, and Lewis just clocked him. And he just hit him just perfectly. And he didn't get up. And what ended up happening was Bledsoe actually broke a couple of his ribs. In comes Tom Brady. They go on. They win the game. Okay? And I think it was like week 3 or week 4 because they usually play the divisional opponents early. And subsequently, they went on and won the Super Bowl that year. And, of course, that was the famous, Adam Vinatieri kick to beat the Rams. And, we all know the legend of Tom Brady ever since. But that's a really good correlation. Good pull, Deadpool. Good pull. It's one of those things where we see the business side of this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the themes of the movie and really talk about those. But first, Jamie Foxx really being comprised characteristics of real-life NFL players Doug Williams, Randall Cunningham, and Deion Sanders. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Well, he had the speed. He had the arm. So, definitely. So, the first theme, okay, of this movie, the first major theme of this movie is the brutality of football. The brutality of football and what it does. And we don't really understand what these guys go through on a weekly basis. And this is just a small sample. I mean, this is a phenomenal photograph, by the way, guys. And, this is when the team's at its lowest point, and they are playing in the mud, essentially. And they have to come together as a team. But it just goes to show you exactly what they had to do. And yeah, and so I mean, don't forget slipping and everything else. And this is concussions are a big thing in the league. I mean, they don't want to talk about it, but it is. And this is a scene where this is at the end of the movie, but that is one of the major storylines of the movie is the brutality of this. Shark is a player that's been around the league. He'd had a lot of concussions, and that is something that the league was worried about. And it's one of those things where he has a family of 5, right? I mean, prior to this, we see that he's begging Tony, please let me play. It's $1 million bonus. Please. And it's one of those things where he's like, okay, fine, but you have to sign a waiver. And that just goes to show you these guys will do anything to actually play. And that's one of the main storylines in this film. I really miss James Woods casting movie roles. Yeah, I do too. And he was really good in this too. He was really good in this as the Doctor. But so that's one storyline. Okay. So when we see him talking to the GM, okay, we'll be like, and she's trying to get him cleared. But she also knows that this guy's eating up a lot of my salary. If I can get this guy out the door, okay, maybe I can save myself a lot of money to bring somebody else in who's a lesser type of player and develop him a la Bill Belichick to do that. And that just goes to show you what it was. And I think that when you see that and what these athletes go through too, like I said, it really kind of drives home. I mean, concussions are a big thing that we don't talk about. It was weird to see Matthew Modine as a voice of reason and ethics. He played a lot of dirty characters in films, definitely. He definitely has done that. Although, most recently, going back to Oppenheimer, he was played a decent role. But I'm not even, so that's one storyline. That's one whole storyline. And this is why it needs to be 3 hours, guys. Okay? When Jamie Foxx comes in and he starts to win. So let's go into the second major theme. And that's the sport of business. Okay? So Any Given Sunday highlights the commercialization and monetization of professional football. It portrays the pressures on coaches, players, and team owners to win at all costs, often it's at the expense of players' welfare and integrity. Going back to this again, okay? This is nearly like the same thing. And you have the GM who's looking at this from a business point of view, right? And then you have the doctor who's looking at this from an ethical point of view. Money and ethics, those are the two things involved here. And what we see is that he was basically trying to get him killed, essentially. He was a head, as James Wood, as the doctor said, he's a head case. I mean, I think he's going to be okay, but I'm not that much of an idiot. I'm not going to put myself, I do have morals. And that's when Tony really, when the assistant, okay, the assistant doctor, played by Aaron Eckhart, goes to him and says, hey, Tony, look, switch the results. This is when he confronts him on the field. Okay? And he's like, look, you're trying to get my players killed here. Okay? What are you doing? And that just shows you, once again, the commercialization of the players and everything else. And of course, he gets kicked out, but not before. It's a scary proposition. So okay. So moving on to the third theme of this, and there were a lot of themes, guys, but definitely necessary. Team dynamics and leadership. The film explores the dynamics of teamwork and leadership within a football team and emphasizes the importance of trust, communication, and camaraderie among players and coaches. and the role of strong leadership in shaping the team's success. Definitely. And when we see Willie come in, they they think, oh, this is a hot kid, and he starts changing plays and he starts doing everything himself. And that's when they all sit down and say, look, he, you know, running backs look, he's changing the plays in there. Okay. And so that's when the coach invites him over. Okay. And they have a sit down. And so Shark is basically like, oh yeah, I invited him over house, and so he's trying to make, to have the quote to talk. And so I found there's so many correlations here. Ben-Hur. So when he arrives, okay, and then we see the they're having the discussion, okay, and he's trying to say, you have the aging coach in Tony, basically telling the new kid on the block, look, you're young, you're stupid, you don't think anything of it, and you've got to run the plays that I call. And there's so much. It's not all about you, okay? There's not the greed. It's the basically there are 10 other guys around you that need your help, okay? And if you keep doing what you're doing, you're gonna get somebody hurt or even worse. And what Ben-Hur represents, okay, is, and I know you watched this, Dadpool, fairly recently, a couple months ago. It talks about one person, but the whole gladiator sequence, right? They'll do anything to get it done. Okay, I mean, Ben-Hur is going to get killed in a gladiator in an arena. So, and it talks about them being warriors, and basically Beeman rebels. He's like, look, this coach, okay, he was getting handouts. He was handing everything out. I'm the one that got pinched, okay? And I'm the one that dropped 6 rounds in the draft, and then some idiot coach thought I was a good safety because I had quick feet. So I had to tackle 250-pound guys, okay, dislocated my shoulder, and then on top of all of that, I get traded, okay? And what ends up happening is I come to a team where I'm just riding the bench. So he's like, I'm going to get my dollars up. And whenever you decide to waive me, trade me, into reserve me, whatever you're going to do, I'm going to be worth 10 times the amount. So it really shows the dynamics there on all of that. That's a great film comparison. Yeah. And it really was. It was a really well done correlation there. So let's move on to the next theme of the film because I think it's necessary. Okay? The pursuit of excellence. Any given Sunday underscores the relentless pursuit of excellence in the drive to win in professional sports. It examines the sacrifices, dedication, and perseverance required to compete at the highest level and achieve success in the face of formidable challenges. And yeah, once again, it's all about the practice and everything else. And they barely squeak in the playoffs. And it's like, okay, this is one of the most awe-inspiring speeches that you'll ever see. It really is. I mean, you talk about Rocky and talk about this 5-minute speech. It talks about life too, and what his life is. He's basically encapsulating all of it in a 5-minute speech, and how he drove everybody away, how he's lost all his money, how things are getting taken away from him, and it's a fantastic speech. And Pacino, this is one of his better performances. I mean, he's had some ducks, if you will, but this one was fantastic, especially the chemistry between himself and Cameron Diaz in the fireworks. So there were a couple of other shots. I mean, Berkeley's character. Okay, I mean Mandy, and that's who he's turning to because he doesn't have anybody, right? He's like, when you get old, things get taken away from you, not because you want them to get taken away from you, but that's just how it happens, right? Um, like I said, Jim Brown brought a real intensity, and he brought authenticity to this film. He plays the linebacker coach, ironically, okay, but it's just really, I mean, Jim Brown is Jim Brown. You know, he was fantastic in this movie, and he didn't say much. He had a couple of little, um, scenes with Pacino, and one of the scenes that I most remember, okay, is when they're at the bar, okay, Pacino and Brown are at the bar, and basically he says that television changed everything. Television changed everything, and it's the way we think. The first time that they cut away from a commercial, it changed everything. It's over. And he's right. Because before commercials, you just had the game on. You had the people, and you didn't have to worry about sponsorships or commercials or quarters in between. Whatever the weather was, whether it was rain or shine, you saw them, and you basically you watched the game, and you didn't cut away for you know this is sponsored by David's potato chips or whatever it was. But I mean, that's the thing, and that's what made football football. um like I said, the speech at the very end is one of the most powerful, motivating, energetic speeches about life that you'll ever see in your life. It was fantastic. Um, and then at the end, so I mean, they go on, they win the game because of the selflessness, and they all come together. But I love the end. Okay, the end is always going to tell you something, and so you know how he was able to basically, uh, for lack of a better word, screw over Cameron Diaz's team. Because let's not forget, guys, she was trying to get a new stadium built, right? So she was trying to have a little power play with the mayor, and it didn't work. And the commissioner came in, by the way, played by Charlton Heston. Okay, it was his only scene, and so she had to go fly up to Miami the next day and basically get that resolved. But D'Amato said, "Yeah, it's time for me to go. But before I do go, I'm getting full ownership." So he's basically taking the spotlight out of from her and putting it on himself. Oh, by the way, I'm getting full ownership of GM ownership. And by the way, I just signed my franchise player, Willie Beeman. And it's like, yeah, and it's just the twist there at the end was really good. Um, he did such a good job with this film overall. And here's a stretch. What if Pacino's character in Any Given Sunday is the same one for Two for the Money? No. I've seen Two for the Money. I know what you're talking about. It's the thing is, once you're a coach, right? You're always thinking like a coach. When you're a gambler, you're always thinking like a gambler, always. So I get what you're saying. Anybody who's not familiar with Two for the Money, Two for the Money is about, there's two main characters. Al Pacino plays a gambler, and Matthew McConaughey, and so they bet on football a lot. I could see where you're going with that, but I would say the right word to use is stretch. I think it is a little bit of a stretch, but good try though. I give you credit for that. But it's one of those things where the ending was fantastic too. And I'm not. By the way, guys, I'm not even talking about Lauren Holly, who plays opposite of Dennis Quaid, who is great. Okay, I'm not even talking about Aaron Eckhart, even though he doesn't have that many scenes. He does have some. Um, you know, there are a lot of subplots here. So let's move on to the next particular topic. Personal redemption and second chances. Several characters in the film grapple with personal demons, setbacks, and redemption arcs. It explores themes of forgiveness, redemption, and the opportunity for second chances, both on and off the field. And once again, you see that Beeman is, when he has to go, he knows at the speech, when D'Amato is giving that speech, he knows that he has to be a leader. He knows he has to go out and really do that for his team. And so that's when he leads. I mean, Cap gets knocked out in the halftime, and then he goes in and he wins the game. But he realizes this is what it takes to be a leader. But yeah, so that, and it's not just Beam. Okay, it's Dennis Quaid, it's Cap's character, it's Sharp's character, it's everybody's character, right? That is going for not only forgiveness but different things. So, the next one, okay, um, the intersection of race and sports, and I touched upon this earlier, but I want to. The film touches upon issues of race and representation within the context of professional football. By the way, guys, we still deal with this today. It explores the challenges of barriers faced by minority players and coaches, as well as the broader societal issues of inequality and discrimination. And it all goes back to that dinner I was talking about. You know, when they were sitting down having that exchange and going back and forth, and it's true. It's absolutely true. If you look at any major sport, okay, whether it is baseball, whether it is the NFL, or whether it is basketball, whatever it is, it goes to show you the inequality in what they have to do to make a buck, right? And so, once again, when he puts on Ben-Hur showing they are gladiators and they will fight and they will do whatever they have to do, okay, and play whenever they have to play, it's it's important. And so yeah, it's definitely an important thing for them. Um, so yeah, that's sorry about that, guys. But yeah, it was definitely that's definitely something that's vitally important to this. And so the last theme, okay, is the for, famous success. Any given Sunday also examines the fleeting nature of fame and success in the world of professional sports. It portrays the highs and the lows experienced by athletes and coaches and the challenges navigating the pressures of fame, fortune, and the public scrutiny. And it really does, because when we see Beeman, I mean, at his high point, he's doing all these commercials and everything else, and he's on Sports Illustrated, the sides of buses, and everything else. And Cap is nowhere to be seen. And that just goes to show you how fast society and fans, no matter if you're a bandwagon fan or if you're a true fan, just jumps on it. And they'll just, and you better, you better ride it, because it could be over in a heartbeat, you know. And it's just everything about this movie is fantastic. You know, the ending, like I said, going back to the ending real quick, how he was able to manipulate and get everything he wanted. And he's like, even in the speech, he's like, I'm going to miss you guys, and I am. I'm going to really miss you guys. And that's what he tells Beeman after the win. He's in an empty stadium and he says, I ran into a player a couple of months ago back in Los Angeles. He says, the one thing that he misses, it wasn't the women, it wasn't the fame, it wasn't the money. Do you know what he missed? He missed the other 10 guys looking back at him and actually waiting on his every word. So, because those are the guys that he was around all the time. And that was really the thing that drove him. And he ended up winning championships. He's like, look, the guy was not the most talented in the world. He wasn't the fastest runner. He couldn't throw the highest, the best football. But at the end of the day, he had it. He had whatever it was, and he got the job done. And so Any Given Sunday is just, it's a fantastic watch. It really is. It's one of those films that it just keeps going and going. All of the scenes on the football field were fantastic. They were authentic. My final thoughts was it was a different kind of an Oliver Stone film. It moves. The acting was good, but not great. Okay. Um, and the football players like LT and Jim Brown, like I said, showed authenticity. The sequences were fantastic, especially the wide shots when they would go in and they go wide. The film showed the metal side, okay, of the game, from partying to the brokering to the women, the injuries, and everything they go through. And by the way, I forgot Richard Donner. Of course, he directed Superman. I forgot he was an executive producer on this. So that tells you something, right? But this was just so good on so many different levels, because that's what every single sports franchise, a professional franchise, football franchise especially, goes through. With stories, with players, with doctors, with management, with contracts, with everything, trying to improve the players. You're always going to have those fleeting moments where a superstar is butting heads with somebody else. And can they just walk away, or does a player get traded, or whatever else? And mainly in football. And it really talks upon, another major issue that I didn't even touch upon, that a whole movie really did. And that's concussions. Concussions are a major thing, especially in football. I mean, the protocol has changed since, but back then, you got your bell rung, they just put it back out there. And that's what, CTE and everything else started to come into play. And next thing you know, you have these players dying, and their brains, they may be 35, 36 years old, and they have the brain of a 7-year-old. But that's what it is. They're doing it for the money. And then after concussion came out, okay, what you saw then was a lot of other players. They got in, did their rookie contract, got out, had one more contract, and they got out when they were like 29, because they knew what the problem was. So Will Smith didn't get a role in this movie, but concussion changed the game. I agree. I completely agree with you. It definitely changed the game for the better, I think. And I think that, look, here's the thing. At the end of the day, the league will never acknowledge CTE. Because if they acknowledge CTE, football will go away in a heartbeat for everything. Whether it's college football or professional football, it's gone. Because no kid, okay, is going to grow up with the possibility of having this happen. It's just not going to happen. What they will do is say, look, you get your bell rung, fine. We will sit you out, and then you can, we're going to run a lot of tests, and then we'll put you back in. So, yeah, that is, it's a whole thing in itself. But that's Any Given Sunday. This film it's second to none, and it's one of those things where I love this movie. It's across the board. It's a great movie. It's probably number 5 or number 6 on the list of Oliver Stone films for me. I mean, like I said, you got Platoon, Platoon, or Wall Street or JFK. So yeah, this was a really, really good movie, and I didn't mind the length. I didn't mind the length at all, and it had to be almost 3 hours. It really did, because if it didn't, it would have been so much stuff that got cut out. So yeah, it really was a. I can't believe it's 25 years old. I just don't believe that. So that being said, um, biggest. So I am, and I didn't do it yesterday, and I know I didn't do it yesterday. Um, but this is one I wanted to do. Okay, so what I am going to do, okay, and I can't believe it's February 1st, guys. Get Out. I said I was going to do this today, and I am. I am going to do this today. I'm going to make it a point to do this today. Um, I got really tired after last night, and so, but I am going to come back and I am going to do Get Out this afternoon. It's 3 o'clock now, so I'm going to put this one up, and then I'm going to come back and I want to at least export this, and then I'll put this out, and then I will come back in a couple hours and do that. So the movie holds up. Can't tell by the way it was shot. Yeah, I know, and that's before HD too, right? That's before digital. So Get Out. Today's February 1st. Today is the beginning of Black History Month. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and back in a couple hours, and I'm going to give my thoughts on Get Out. I love this movie. It was so good. So good. And I can't wait to talk to you. I have a whole page and a half of notes based on the film, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys. So that is going to be that. And then as we progress, you're going to get films like In the Heat of the Night and Black Panther and, He Got Game and all these films. And then in between, you're going to be getting bios of filmmakers and actors and actresses of color, because they need to be highlighted during Black History Month. And this is something that I wanted to do. But I wanted to start out this month with the perfect movie, and that's going to be Get Out. So, what you can do, and I have a couple of goals. I am looking to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. So right now, you can head on over to the join page, okay, on the website on YouTube, and right now it's completely free. Okay, it's completely free. I have made it extremely affordable for everybody. Okay, it's $2.99 a month. Okay, for just moviegoer. The biggest one, and I very, very loyal person that's tuned into all my streams, is Dadpool. He just re-upped for 7 months, guys. So it's one of those things where it's just, yeah. So, but it's $10 a month, guys. You're not going to be able to get this entertainment anywhere else. All this entertainment for $10 a month. I'm talking about retrospectives. I'm talking about interviews. I'm talking about live streams. I'm talking about videos. Anywhere else. So it's one of those things where you guys can help me out. My goal is to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of this year, okay? And 20 to 30 paid memberships, okay? That's my goal. Now, if I hit it, I hit it, but I'm going to shoot for the stars. My other thing is, if you don't want to actually contribute monetarily, please, I'm begging you, hit that like and subscribe. Even if I see people pop in and go back out, hit that like and subscribe button, because what you're going to get is you're going to get perfect movies. You're going to get retrospectives. You're going to get interviews. You're going to get so much stuff, okay? And hitting that like and subscribe button is going to do a lot. because what it's going to do is, number one, it's going to tell me you enjoy the content. Number two, it's going to get it out there to the masses. And number three, it's going to tell me, once again, that you like what I'm doing. And I have things that I'm trying to put together, like anatomy of a movie and a couple of other things. So that's what this is. And I'm trying to get guests too. So, I mean, it's one of those things where this isn't just me talking into a camera for an hour, even though I love doing it. But it's look, you guys can help me out. Seriously, you can help me out. And this is the way to do it. So either hit, as it says at the bottom of the ticker, you can either help me out by, super chats, memberships, or hitting that like and subscribe button. And that's what it's going to do. Or leave me a comment too. That's also going to get it out. Tell me if you didn't like Any Given Sunday, why didn't you like it? Or which particular Al Pacino movies did you like besides The Godfather? But that's the thing. He's done so much in his career. So, but Get Out. That's going to be coming up later on tonight. I will tweet out exactly when I'm going to put it out. And that way I can get as many people sitting down at their computer screens, on their phones, whether you're at work, office, at the gym maybe, and you actually can sit down and watch this. So that's going to do it, I think. I had a great time. I had a fantastic time with Any Given Sunday. And it's a great movie. It is really a great movie, and I can't believe it's been 25 years. So that is going to do it for me. I will be back in a couple of hours, and I will be streaming Get Out and let you know my thoughts on that. So in the meantime, guys, do the three things I always tell you to do. Number one is take care of yourself. Number two is take care of others around you. And number three is have a fantastic rest of the day. And that's going to do it for me. I'm David Steele, and you have been watching Real Talks. Bye-bye, guys.